And it's just me today, I think. We'll see if anyone shows up as our guest. Everyone had something that they needed to do this week, and I myself won't be here on Wednesday. I have jury duty for the statistically improbable fifth time in, I think, the minimum amount of time they're allowed to wait before they call you back in. So I won't be here, and there won't be a website Wednesday this week. Today, an interesting topic that came up and has come up a couple of times recently and then many times over the last year. Now, we did a video a few weeks ago where we talked about sort of like a thick market at the low end of a market where you or your business might be in a market like especially a service business or like lawn care, mowing grass, graphic artist, copywriter, where the barrier to entry to move into your industry and become a competitor to you is very low. It might cost almost nothing. There's no licensing. It's easy to sort of create a story and even sort of dream up references and maybe like mock up things in order to make it seem to customers or prospects who aren't familiar with hiring people like you that you're at or above a level that they would expect and need. And what ends up happening is that there's an information asymmetry. Now, there's a lot of money to be made. The old saying is all profit comes from some kind of inefficiency. You either make profit by eliminating the inefficiency or you make profit by capitalizing on the inefficiency. Now, information asymmetry shows up in different industries. It's probably everywhere. It basically means one party knows way more than the other party knows or would ever know. The wedding industry is kind of famous for this, where you might only get married once or twice in your lifetime. And so the actual cost for what that hall is worth, or the catering, or the flowers, or wedding dresses, or all of these services, you don't know because you're not in that market often enough. The best you can hope for is that with enough reviews or asking friends and getting recommendations and so on, you don't pay too much for what you're getting. But the people in the wedding industry are kind of famous for it. They know way more about weddings and true costs and deliveries and all that kind of stuff than you ever will. Most businesses who hire graphic artists, writers, anybody, or people who hire lawn services for just their own home, you don't know the cost structure, the profit structure, the model, what goes into a price, and and you have no way of judging what a good outcome could be with the person you're talking to. Like it's just there's they know way more and you know way less, and it's very easy in some markets for a whole bunch of people to come in. So I'm talking to a couple of copywriters, one this morning, where, and this has probably happened to you in your business, or even if you're just looking for a job, they're getting he's when he's talking to prospects, he's being compared to people on Fiverr or Upwork. Now, there's nothing wrong with being, in his case, he's a copywriter. There's nothing wrong with being a copywriter on Fiverr or Upwork. And some people make, a living there, and a very tiny percentage make a very good living there. But for the most part, literally anybody who speaks English around the globe can put up a little, virtual shop and compete and bid for copywriting jobs. So obviously, where you have a lot of people, including a lot of junior or brand new people, moving into a market, there's a lot of price pressure. And if you're not on those platforms, you end up being compared in some cases, or this person was being compared to what he charges for X versus what that person could get on Fiverr or Upwork. I forget which one he was talking about. And we were talking about different ways to answer that question or deal with that objection. Is it, why am I paying you X per hour or X per email or X per web page or whatever, when I can go to Upwork and get it for this much money, which is obviously less? There are two strategies for dealing with something like that. The first one is to make it hard to compare you and what you do to what an uninformed, for the most part, prospect could find and then get delivered actually on a job platform like Upwork. Now, I don't mean this is not a quality argument. quality, again, we're dealing with prospects who don't know enough about good quality to know that they're not going to get it from one place or another. So you can't make the quality argument. What we discussed, this copywriter and I, is that he needs to add a service, or oops, sorry, I gotta let John in. He needs to add a service or change his business model in a way so that he cannot be compared apples to apples to putting out a project on Upwork and having 45 different copywriters submit that they want that job in inside of an hour. Now, your situation will be different, but there's something that you do, possibly a skill or an asset that you have that you don't even think about today as being something that your clients would care about or want to, or that would belong in your service offering. And yet you absolutely can include it, even if you're including it for free, quote unquote, for free, John. And even if your client doesn't actually care about it, you need to differentiate in a way that makes it impossible to value it properly. And the reason for that is that we can't compare, as humans in our brains, we can't compare two things that are so dissimilar, or where one is sort of cold and clinical and one is sort of more emotional or visceral. We can't compare them easily. And so, granted, you're not going to get everyone who says, hey, I could pay $30 an hour less for this on Upwork. You're not going to get everybody. But you do need to change your offering and your message in such a way that you cannot be compared. And quality, like we said, will not do it because the buyers have no idea what good quality is or what good quality costs anyway, and haven't yet been disappointed by people at the junior and new people coming into a market. They haven't been disappointed enough yet, or as you could say, it doesn't hurt enough yet for them to appreciate that sometimes you have to pay a little extra to get exactly what you wanted, right? And I know, John, you're in the video business. Like this is you all the time, right? Because there are parts of the video production business and video creation business and marketing of it that are continually being taken over by AI, and that people on the other side of the world will do like cheaper. Is that fair to
Yeah,
say?
especially or very low scale editing kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, totally.
Like the market will eventually, either the automated market or the lower cost market, it will eventually move up the value chain. The point is that the rest of us need to be moving up at the same time to create new ways to create value. So
Or
that was
there,
the first advice I gave them.
yeah,
Like you need to be able to go ahead.
as I say, the other thing that happens quite frequently too is, obviously there's different levels of what we do.
Yeah.
You know, um, Simple content rating isn't the same as writing somebody's full webinar. Um,
Right.
Brushing up some light video isn't the same as creating a production for somebody's business. So there's that offset as well, which
Yeah.
I think you touched on. But
Yeah. And then the other option that he and I explored for him is that, given everything we've just said, that it's very hard to know exactly what you should be getting. It's very hard to know ahead of time that you're going to get it from a particular provider, regardless of whether it's a copywriter, a graphic artist, home chef, or really anything that you've never tried before or haven't got a lot of experience in purchasing and can't discern. There's going to be a market. There's going to be a collection of companies around the world, certainly in the United States, of people who have tried and paid for somebody on a platform who may have been very new, but they had no way of knowing how new that person was. You can like mock up, like a background for yourself. There's going to be a market of people who've been down that road already, paid money, been disappointed, and who might be willing. I told them, in your messaging, you can either have this as a message or actually start it as a line of business. Is to say, I understand if if you haven't been down this road before and you want to try finding someone on Fiverr or Upwork or one of many other platforms or Craigslist or whatever. There, Kijiji, I think it's called Kijiji in Canada. It's kind of like Craigslist for Canada. You should absolutely go down that road. When that's done, if you're not happy, you should know that I have a thriving line of business. This is sort of messaging, it's not me. I have a thriving line of business where clients come to me to fix, polish, or actually make usable what they've paid someone else a lower price on Fiverr to do.
Hmm.
Now, I said the reason for this messaging is twofold. One, you want to get out of the conversation where you need to justify what you charge. And uh, and so by saying that you have and obviously don't lie, do this kind of work, but charge your regular rates for it, or charge good rates for it. Explain that you have a line of business or service where you go in and fix all of those like junior people, lower or brand new people mistakes. So the customer understands that there's enough possibility, and we'll get to like this conundrum that they have. There's enough possibility of them being disappointed that it becomes hard to compare. How do you compare the cost of someone on Upwork versus the cost of someone who fixes what people on Upwork do? Obviously, the person who does the fixing is more expensive than the person who does the initial, decent but not great job.
Should be, for sure.
Yeah. And then I said the second aspect, sort of halo around that line of business of fixing other people's, mistakes, is that you're not turning away the client. You're saying, yeah, he actually turned away the client. He said, the prospect, I should say. And he said he'd done it several times in the last week, where it's like, you're not, I'm not saying you can't get it done for that price that you have in mind. I am saying that I'm not the one to do it. If you want to, and if you're looking at folks on Upwork, go to Upwork. And that's where he left it. And I say, if you tell them that you fix the mistakes that the Upwork folks do, then you leave a door open for them to come back. I said, like in my own case, I am never, or virtually never, the first copywriter a business hires. Like it almost never happens. I'm always at least the second, and often the fourth or fifth, and hopefully the last. But I don't turn them away and say, don't ever come back. If they need to make their mistake, if they need to spend their money, if they don't know what they're buying and they don't know what quality is until they see bad quality, you can't change that. And it's not worth trying to educate a prospect who has a dollar figure anchored in their head, and then you're just arguing with that. And I said, now, if you ever come to a situation where you absolutely want that client, and there are some examples where you want a particular client, they'd be their name is kind of famous, or it's famous in your field, or the project looks particularly interesting, or all of our businesses have like little ups and downs. If you happen to be in down, or you see your pipeline's a tiny bit thin, and you said, that wouldn't take that long, and knock it out in X amount of days or weeks, whatever, I'll do it, then that's fine. What you do then is by talking about how you fix other people's mistakes, you're introducing the other component that they're not thinking of. So he said he was talking to someone who was head of marketing, and the head of marketing was the one who was sort of pushing the pricing. You should not charge me any more than I would pay X amount on Upwork. And I said, if you stick to the price argument, you'll never win it, because I promise you, there's always someone on Upwork who will do it for $1 cheaper or a penny cheaper. And there's someone behind them who will do it for even cheaper. I say, he said this person wasn't like a marketing person. It was almost like I was talking to a CFO. And I said, if you're ever talking to someone who can't get the dollar aspect, the price out of their head, then the only way to do that, to move them off that X, is to introduce the concept of risk. Because as much as people like spending less to get the same thing, nobody likes the risk of spending less and getting less. When they wanted, this, okay, I got it for this price, but it's only down here. So I still have this gap that I need to fill. And I've wasted my own time dealing with all this, finding the right person, blah, 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 blah. So you have to introduce risk around that. So now it's a concept around, are you the safer choice? Or is someone that they don't know on one of these job platforms the safer choice. And the person on the job platform is almost never going to be the safer choice. Or let's put it this way, I don't know those people on the job platform. No one can know because we don't know who applied for what job, but they'll never seem like the safer choice. Granted, they do have reviews and they do have, supposedly mocked up work and stuff, but that's easy to, those objections or supposed advantages are easier to deal with because anybody can have friends come on, spend a tiny bit of money, and then, get started. Or a friend could put up $1,000 project, invite their friend to do it, and then the friend gives them back the $1,000, and it looks like they've earned $1,000 in the last week or month on one of the platforms, and it turns out like it was all, it was just moving money around. So those are the things that I told them. I talk about how you can fix those other people's mistakes. So, by all means, go ahead and try them out, and then you know where I am if you decide that you want something better. And then we ended up, this is the weirdest part, we ended up thinking about whether this was an actual market that was worth going after. So have you ever thought about this? Going after competitors' mistakes, like going after those clients that have already been through it once.
Sure.
Right? It's an interesting concept because depending on the market you're in, it's usually would require you to take well, again, we'll use copywriting as an example. If the client bought services from a job site and got a web page or got an email sequence or whatever it is that they're getting written, it was written, and either you can just tell it's not very good, or you couldn't tell if it was good or bad, but it's not performing. Right? Given how many people do how many projects on these gigantic sites worldwide, then if even 10% of those customers are dissatisfied, that's millions of customers. And if you could identify them in some way or reach them with messaging in some way, then you could end up getting a bite at the apple for those clients, and something is already there. I can tell you, and like this is the premise that Website Wednesday is completely built on, right? When we do Website Wednesdays, which we're not doing this week thanks to jury duty, but the entire concept of Website Wednesday is that a website that already exists, even a bad one, is much easier and faster to repair than one that doesn't exist at all and has to be thought through from scratch. So you could pick up sort of like, an aftermarket or secondary market, copywriting work, graphic design work, coaching, whatever. You could focus on people who've already been down the road with somebody, but the quality wasn't very good or didn't match what they needed. And that's like a whole line of business. Like you really could have a thriving business where you didn't just accept clients who'd gone out to Fiverr or whatever first, and then came to you and said, it's like not exactly what I needed, or it's not working. Can you help me? And instead, like actively seek them out, proactively go after that market and say, hey, so if you've hired someone and you didn't think it was like particularly great, or it's not working for you, or people aren't opening the emails, or no one's, booking a demo or asking for a sales meeting with you, here's what we do. And then you can actually just sell it as a maybe 30-minute review. It's like, we'll get on a Zoom call and we'll record it for you. And I'll go through and show you all the stuff and even offer suggestions on what you should have said or written or done. Ever thought about going after the secondary market?
And that's very common right now.
Yeah.
People who will come in and, go through and review what's been done and then kind of go over it. Absolutely.
So I don't know if he's going to take any or all of those suggestions, but at least he's got a path forward.
Yeah,
where he doesn't treat them as competitors that he needs to compete with, but rather another layer, a lower layer or level of his marketplace competitors, and that he's one up who will go in and like fix what they've done.
Right.
Not even review, but fix what they've done. Because anybody can review, but fixing it, that's a different thing.
That's a different thing. It's funny kind of going through this because when I look at copywriters or copywriting as one of those things that I would never go to Fiverr to find somebody to do or to Upwork. It's just not a skill set that I would look for there because you
Oh,
really want
well,
somebody.
there
I
are
know
hundreds
people
and
do it
hundreds of
every day,
thousands of them.
and there's thousands of them. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're not good because occasionally you get lucky and you find somebody who is good or decent.
Sure.
But there are a lot of other skills that where it's not a bad place to go look. You see somebody who's a radio DJ and you need a podcast intro and outro
Right.
or
Or even the
stuff
voiceover
like that,
people. Like,
or even some voiceover people.
you
And
know
there
that
is a
the samples
difference
are
of
them because it's their voice.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is still good for some places, for some things, but again, copywriting is a funny one because it's not one that I even think about really for that.
Yeah, no, it's a big thing. It's a big, big thing.
I know
It's
it is.
the standard advice for anyone. "Hey, I'd like to get started in copywriting. What do I do?" The standard advice is set up on Fiverr or set up on Upwork.
Yeah.
Mock up some pieces since you don't have any customers, or, just, like, find examples and reuse them from other people, and then, try to get your first gig and grow from there. And honestly, like, I can't fault people for taking that approach. I mean, you
Can't
shouldn't
either.
steal other people's work, but, it happens, and, if you need to eat, you need to eat. Who am I to say, right? I know my stuff's been copied. It happens. I don't even think about it. Oh, by the way, one of the people that I helped, their request was whether or not they could say on because I tell everybody, I have so many ideas about so many things. You can just take what you want, steal them. Like, I will never run out of ideas about stuff. But this was different. Like, would I mind being listed as, or sort of talked about in sales meetings or whatever, as like that person's mentor? Like, they model their stuff on my stuff. And I say, I can't imagine that would make any difference to anybody. But sure, if you want to, I can't stop you, even if I wanted to stop you. But that was a first for me. It's like, hey, you're one of the copywriting gurus. Can I, like, use your name? And to be honest, I was caught a little bit by surprise. But I mean, there's no point in ever saying no to that kind of stuff because you couldn't stop it even if you wanted to. You wouldn't even know it was happening.
No. However, when somebody asks you, what if, for instance, you didn't like his work?
Well, so what? That wouldn't stop him from saying that he,
It wouldn't stop
modeled
the
his
other
stuff
person
after
from doing
me.
it. No, no.
So there you go. There may be in your market, especially if you're in a marketplace where a lot of junior or brand new people can easily set up shop and start competing, at least on price. There may be an opportunity for you to either A, add something to your offering that's like just a little different or bizarre even, but then breaks the comparison model. So you're not apples to apples anymore. It's apples and purple, right? It's like they just don't mix. There's like
No.
dissonance there that a prospect can't bridge. Or else, if you're being asked, like, why do you charge X when I can get it for, X minus 35% somewhere else, then just bring up the fact that, if that's the route you want to go, go. But look into fixing those people's mistakes or taking what they've done. Most of them are new. And by the way, the reason I talk about, there are some very experienced and excellent copywriters
Hmm.
on both of those platforms. But you have to understand those platforms take 20 to 25% of every dollar you pay before it gets to the person that you expect the money to go to, which
Right.
means that at some point when you're good enough, you don't operate on those platforms very often, because why would you voluntarily give up 20% of what you could be making? And so what happens is a tiny percentage, these are the ones like so and so who's 22 years old makes $100,000 a year on Fiverr or something. Yes, and there are people who do. All of those people eventually cycle out of the system. Because why stay on a platform where you're continually compared to people, charging pennies per X? And second, why continually give up a fifth of your income When if you're at that level, you've probably got enough of a portfolio and a client base that you can just leave the platform. Some percentage of those clients will go with you, and you know enough to get more clients.
I think the only reason people actually do that to get started is because they don't want to get involved with the marketing. They want to
Right.
focus on the skill that they're great at. And so they just kind of let that slip. But after a while, they go, hey, I can market this. I can do
After a
this on
while,
my
it's real
own.
money.
Yeah. And then, well, and it's another skill that they've developed. So
Yeah.
maybe they didn't have the marketing chops to pull it off the first round,
Right.
but
I
now
mean,
they got it
when you
now.
think about it that way, there's nothing wrong with taking 20% of your revenue, considering that a cost for sales and
No.
marketing. And although you do have to do a lot of your own marketing and a lot of your and all of your almost all of your own selling, even though you're on that platform, basically you're just renting an audience that can find you.
Hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that. And I mean, if you think about it as a business will spend with sales and marketing combined, about 20%.
Sure.
But the problem is then it's there's that, and then there's actively being one click away, and not even one click away because multiple people are shown on the same page, like compared to a bunch of other people who are willing to charge less and less and less and less for the exact same project.
Well, the same thing was true for a long time with affiliate sales. People
Yes.
look people looked at it and said, "Hey, geez, I'm giving up 40 to 50% of my income to somebody to bring me a new client or customer." Then the
Yeah.
advertising rolled in, and it was a lot less expensive to get new clients. And hey, I didn't have to pay that fee anymore to somebody else to advertise for me.
Right.
So it's really not much difference. It's the same. It's kind of the same thing over and over again.
Now, if you are someone currently like using one of the big platforms to get started in something and build your business, the best advice I ever saw given to someone else. I just sort of like was observing the conversation between people. Is that you go on these platforms, you stay there, and try to get jobs and clients for 3 or 6 months, and then you let them all know that you're leaving the platform, and then you deactivate your account,
Hmm.
and some percentage of them will follow you, and then after 3 or 6 months, you reactivate on the account and do the basically you're rinsing and repeating. So you're building your own portfolio of clients, your own pipeline on your own off the platform where you get 100% instead of 80% of the revenue. And then but you also use the platform, leverage it to get exposure to more potential clients, and then you just like cycle that through over and over and over. You are it's worth noting, technically that's probably you have to word it very carefully because you don't want to violate terms of service. You're not allowed to like move off the platform with the same client, but there's nothing wrong with telling a client, hey, I'm winding down my presence on, I'll just use Upwork as an example, I'm winding down my presence on Upwork. It was great working with you. If you find anything or have any comments or questions about what I did for you, here's my email address. Otherwise, have a nice day. And like, that's fine, right? You're
Yeah.
like you're just offering to follow up or fix anything or adjust or tweak or whatever, and then you move off the platform. But a percentage of them will follow you and say, "Oh no, like I really liked working with you, and we really like the quality of the work. So, I'll reach out to you." And then you end up with that commercial relationship outside of the platform where you get all the revenue instead of 80%. I'm not proposing you do that. I'm saying that's advice that I experienced one person giving to another person, and it seems super smart. Just
Yeah,
like
I've
leave.
heard people do similar things. Yep.
Yeah. But ultimately, you've got this twin-sided problem of information asymmetry, where the person who's buying doesn't know how to buy and doesn't know and can't predict what they're going to get. And on one side of the equation, on the other side of the equation is a labor pool of people where literally anybody can just say that they do X, whatever, life coaching, strategies, market positioning, discussions, consulting, copywriting, graphic artists, motion graphics, whatever. And so it's a very thick market with a lot of low end folks who are just getting started, and in whose interest it is to never tell you that they're junior or brand new. I mean, what would be the point of that? So it's an interesting problem, and some percentage of those buyers are going to ultimately be disappointed with what they got. Maybe they think it's okay for the money they spent, but it's not what they need. So there's going to be a market there if you want to go after them, assuming that you can. There are three criteria we're going to wind up at. There's three criteria for going after a market like that. A, can I identify or find these prospects? B, can I cost effectively reach them? And C, do they pay people like me? And in this case, these people have already proven that they do hire people like you, and you do know that you know really the challenge is finding them. You'd have to really advertise, I guess, or become known, or just sort of get the word out that you're the person who fixes the other people's work. So can I identify them, and can I reach them is really the challenge here. But even though all three of those criteria are important, there's no point in being able to find them and being able to cost effectively reach them if they don't pay people like you. So in a way, paying people like you is the number one criteria, and these folks have already proven that they do that. So it comes down to figuring out a clever way to get the word out and finding them and communicating with them, that if you're not happy with what you have, there's an option. All right, that's Monday. Tomorrow, Social Tuesday. Nothing on Wednesday because of jury duty. Hopefully, jury duty is over in a day, or that they won't even need me, in which case I guess we could still do Website Wednesday. If I call
So
the night
Website
before,
Wednesday's up in the air. We'll wing it.
Yeah. But I mean, they didn't call many people during COVID for 2 years. So the fact that it's my fifth call up in essentially 11 years, or if you include COVID, 13 years, that's an insane number of times to be called up for jury duty. I personally don't know anyone who's been called up for jury duty as often as I have in such a short period of time.
How many times can you be called up?
There's no limit to the number of times
There is no limit.
called up. You can't be called up more than once every 2 years.
Okay.
But they're basically calling me up like every 2 years and 6 or 9 months. It's crazy. So we'll see.
Indeed, we will.
It's a privilege to be able to serve. That's all I'm saying, John.
It is. Sure. It is.
Although 5 times, I don't know. At least they have Wi-Fi now. All right, that's it for me today. Thank you again, John. And tomorrow is Social Media Tuesday, and we're going to look at I don't know. John's going to point me towards some LinkedIn posts, LinkedIn profiles, about sections, Facebook company pages, something, and we're going to take a look at it and see what's possible to fix there.
Sounds cool. We're going to have some fun with this.